Welcome to WG Hub Live. It's an informative weekly event aimed at being a lively roundup of latest guidance, information and opportunities. It's open to Ward Goodman clients, as I said, friends of our firm and anyone interested in being part of the WG community. As COVID hit us in March, we introduced the Ward Goodman Hub. It's the sort of first of its kind for accountancy firms and many other professional firms. It was set up as a central place for our community to access information as it became available. Many grants, support packages, all being released on a regular basis. So we've been updating our hub daily, and the comments have been great. It's been really successful. So we thought, why not take it live and see if we can expand on a few of the areas, some of the areas of interest for everybody. And to bring in some guest speakers and see how it goes. By remaining open during the whole pandemic, we have been able to support and offer bespoke advice. Our accountancy side has been running pretty well as normal, as many of our clients are online, and we have sort of monthly service packages. The same things happened. The audit team come up with some very creative ways of keeping going and auditing companies from using this sort of thing, this technology, and even mobile phones and things to take pictures, etc. But it's been fantastic. On the private client front, many people have been continuing their plans, obviously restructure businesses, and a lot of that advice from our private client side has been invaluable to those people as they continued to change and develop their business during this time. From a financial services perspective, obviously, it's been an interesting times, as they always say, with the markets, and but people have still been investing and continuing with the portfolio management, and I'm sure I'll be able to bring Gareth in a bit later if there's some questions on that. So for those of you who join us at our annual charities conference, you'll know that we just love collaborative events, bringing together some specialists, sharing some knowledge, and just getting people together to work together and to hopefully enjoy each other's company. It's a bit more difficult in these circumstances, but that's effectively what this is all about. So WG Live is here for you, and let's see what benefits you can get out of this. At live events, obviously, when we attend those, we all enjoy the refreshments, for instance. People who know me, I love cake. I also love coffee, and but hopefully you've got your own. I haven't, but hopefully you've got yours. But catching up with contacts and friends and coming away with some nuggets of information really is at the core of our events that we hold. And so today, our special guest is Mandy Fitzmaurice, HR guru, owner of Purple HR, our trusted independent partner for HR services. Welcome, Mandy.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me along today. So it's great to be here. Hopefully, I'll be able to share some information this morning, and more importantly, maybe answer some questions that might be buzzing around in people's heads. I think there's a lot going on right now, and things seem to be changing almost on a daily basis right now. So it's quite tough to keep up with everything. So I appreciate that. So hopefully, be able to help a little bit this morning.
That's great, Mandy. Thank you. We'll get going in a minute. So the rest of the panelists today, if you have got questions, you can use the chat function, use the Q&A. I'll be trying to answer some of those questions. Our WG team today, forming the panel, we've got Gareth Simon, Director and Financial Services Specialist. Morning, Gareth.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
We have Stephen Martin, who had a few camera problems, but Stephen Martin, Senior Private Client Tax Expert.
Morning. Hi. Yeah, I've not had a haircut for weeks, so it's probably better that the camera's not working.
Fantastic. We have Jen Richardson, Head of Charities and Community Services.
Hello.
Morning, Jen. And keeping us on track today is Tori Freestone. She's the sort of the corporate picture, you see. So Tori's here trying to keep us on track, which is always a difficult problem for somebody like me. The one thing that's really anchoring me down is this screen. I usually walk around. For those who see me do presentations, I've usually been on the other side of the room by now. So this is quite a challenge. So we'll start with Mandy's presentation, follow up with some questions, hopefully some answers. We have the function for Q&A. Keep them coming. I'll try and get those on afterwards. And so please feel free to interact, and we'll get going. So here we go, Mandy, and
Okay.
We'll come back to you in a minute. I'll come back
Right,
to
okay.
everybody in a minute.
Okay, lovely. Thanks ever so much, Ian. And thanks for the invite to come and speak to you all this morning. So I hope everybody's well on this bright and bushy Friday morning. Looking forward to the weekend. So, so I'm Mandy Fitzmarsh from Purple HR. Some of you I might have met along the way. If I haven't, nice to meet you or meet you all this morning in our virtual worlds that we seem to be living in now, on Zoom, Friend or Teams or wherever we are. I'm not quite sure, actually. So this morning I'm going to talk to you about coming back to work. One of the biggest challenges, I think, as employers we will have right now, and what we're seeing a lot of, lockdown was kind of the easy bet, locking the doors and sending everybody home, kitching them out with things to do at home. Might have felt difficult at the time and challenging, but I assure you that was probably the easy bet. The challenge we have on our hands now is getting back to work and getting people back to work in a safe way, and dealing with all the challenges that might bring. So I'm going to spend sort of 10-15 minutes talking to you. I've got a few slides that I'll pull up in a moment and to take you through. I'm also here to answer questions. So if there's questions that come up, I think Tori's driving the Q&A. So I'll just go through the short presentation at the minute, and then maybe we can have some time on questions, and I'll do whatever I can to answer those things for you. What I would say as a slight caveat is that there's some information we just don't know yet, because things are changing, as I say, fairly rapidly, and some information we're not entirely sure of, so we have to work with the best that we've got right now. So I'm just going to pull up hopefully share my screen successfully. Let's make sure I've got everything. Hopefully it works. Take that away. Oops. Drop my cells. So what I'm going to talk to you about is kind of the steps to getting back to working safely. One of the key things when you're looking at reigniting the business and getting those lovely people back out of their gardens and their baking and all their fun times at home right now is persuading them to come back to work. And before you do anything, before you set a date to do that, the first thing you've got to start thinking about is what you do in terms of the preparation. I don't know how many of you have managed to kind of find your way around on the government guidance, but there are some really good information now that the government's made available about to different packs, if you like. And on the screen, hopefully you can see that, and the link up the top is there where you find it. This is an example of the pack, what pack looks like for offices and contact centres. So within these packs is a real detailed breakdown, easy to follow. Actually, it's not difficult stuff. Sometimes the whole health and safety side of things is not the easiest of reading, but they are good guidance of what the government is expecting us as employers to be doing in workplaces to get ready for people to come back to work. And it is in the preparation. It's a horses for courses, really. I'm an HR specialist, Ward Goodman are accountants. Health and safety is not our natural thing. So these kinds of things, can prove quite challenging. And I think if you've got some health and safety advisors in your business, or people that, advisors that work with you as outsourced, I kind of would recommend, bringing in some advice to help you do this. We had a local health and safety guy came in to our business just over a week ago to do a COVID audit, which was quite helpful, because that kind of gave us a shopping list of the things that we need to do in our workplace, which are maybe not entirely obvious straight away for us to get prepared for everybody to come back. But these are really important measures for you to start taking before you bring people back to work, because out there right now, there is a mixture of people who are dying to get back to work, are really excited, can't wait, got cabin fever, enough of all the homeschooling, I want to get back to some kind of normality, whatever that might be. But equally, there's lots of people out there who are very nervous and genuinely scared about coming back to work. Yeah, and what we have to do as employers now is make that workplace as safe as we possibly can, to give them the best reassurance that we are looking after their welfare, and that they have nothing to worry about, or as little to worry about as possible for when they come back. And this is really important, because There is situations where employees can start saying, I'm scared, I'm just too scared to come back, I feel I might be in imminent danger. And there's parts of employment law, as a section, what called section 44, where employees are starting to think to use this to say, I think I'm going to be in danger. And unless you can demonstrate and prove through risk assessments, through audit trails, through everything you've done in the workplace, you are very unlikely to be able to get that person back to work. So these are real challenges that are going on right now as we speak, and that we're facing as employers, and you will be facing as employers. Hopefully not too much, but trust me, you don't need too many of them to make it challenging. So one of the first pieces of advice I would certainly give you is do your preparation. If you're thinking about getting your people back to work, this is the kind of stuff that you need to be thinking about now before you do that. Get everything in place so that when you have those conversations with employees, they can feel confident and assured that you've done everything you can to ensure their safety, because you have a legal duty to ensure that you provide a safe system and work and environment of workplace. It's really important. So it's a legal obligation that you've got. So this is kind of just an example of what those packs look like. I would thoroughly recommend you go and have a look at them. The information is there, the guidance is there. There's lots of stuff on the HSE website as well. So it will guide you. You don't have to create this or recreate the wheel or think how to do it. There is lots of guidance out there. But equally, if you've got advisors, health and safety advisors, I would say absolutely call them in. And let them help you do this. You will this poster that you see on the right hand side of the screen here, staying COVID-19 secure. This is something that we're going to be expected as employers to be posting on, publishing on the walls, if you like, of our businesses now, to show that we've gone through those 5 steps of working safely. We've got a risk assessment. We've sorted out the cleaning, hand washing and hygiene procedures. We've taken all reasonable steps to help people work from home, maintain the distance and manage the transmission. So in a nutshell, and there's obviously lots within that, but in a nutshell, those are really the highlights, the headlines that we need to be thinking about here. So I've just moved on. Another thing that we strongly advise everybody to do is particularly when you've got people coming back from furlough, is to undertake, it's almost like what I would call a back to work interview. So just think if someone was off sick, they haven't been off sick, they've been on furlough, but chances are they might have been on furlough for quite a while. So this is a strange new world they're coming back to, and you need to think about how you transition people back to work. As I said, some people are worried and nervous, maybe struggling with some mental health challenges, which they might have struggled with anyway. This situation certainly has not made that any easier. So we've developed this return from furlough assessment, which I'm very happy to share, and I'll make this available for you guys to use freely. So we share the love around here. And what we will recommend is that when you're bringing people back, to sit down with them, spend some time and have a chat to them and go through this. So this is just kind of a snapshot here, but it might be helpful if I bring my screen up. Hopefully you can see it. This is the actual form. Gareth, can you give me a nod? Can you see this okay? Does this come up? Yeah. So this is what the form looks like. So, we're having conversations with people, asking them, how were they while they were on furlough leave? Have they had any symptoms? Have they had a test? The new definition of someone that is vulnerable is clinically extremely vulnerable, clinically vulnerable to coronavirus. It's a bit of a mouthful, it's a bit of a tongue twister. These are the kind of things that you need to be asking and finding out, because this is you carrying out your duty of care as an employer to find out. Let me tell you, ignorance is not an excuse in this kind of stuff. You are expected to find this stuff out, and then if you need to make adjustments for these people, for your people coming back, you need to be doing that, okay? But you won't know what adjustments you need to make unless you ask these kinds of questions. So it's a good way to have a conversation, to transition people back into the workplace. So you can see that. Have you been told, has anyone been told to shield? Obviously the shielding is changing at the moment. We just had new guidance out that certain sections of the shielding community are now being told, oh, absolutely, actually, you can kind of get back to work now. So there's some people in that group who are feeling, oh, hang on a minute, why am I not so vulnerable anymore? So there's challenges in there that we're probably going to have to face. If they live with somebody that's shielding, for example, are they able to maintain social distancing, at home so that they can protect themselves? Is there anything else that they need to make you aware of? Childcare, probably one of the biggest issues right now. Whilst schools are coming back to, are getting back to normal, not all years are back yet. So the people have still got young children at home. They can't leave them. If there is no childcare facilities, they can't be expected to leave their children at home. So you're going to have to think about, maybe keeping these people on furlough for a bit longer. You might have to consider paid leave, unpaid leave. But you won't know. This is all about a conversation. So never more now than ever has communication with your employees been more critically important to find out what's going on. So we're asking them, is there anything that we can do to assist you to return to work? Now, what's happening here? It might be that I need to work from home a little bit more. Some of those conversations now about the whole home working concept are probably going to be more challenging, because through this whole horrible ordeal that we've been going through, the home working concept has almost been proven in a way, because it's had to happen. So ordinarily when people say, oh, I'd really like to work from home, will that be okay? We might say to employers, actually no, we want you back in the office. That's going to be a harder conversation to have now with people, because they've had to do it. It's kind of worked okay because it's had to. So how do you start to say no about that? What's your reasons behind that? So you're going to have to think about that. That's one of the challenges as employers that you are going to have to face. Then we look at things like PPE. So, what have you got in place? Hand sanitizer, masks. It all depends on your workplace. If you're in an engineering environment, you might need some other things in place as well. So you've got to think about all these kinds of things as well. Have you given them the appropriate training, guidance how to use this PPE? That kind of stuff needs to be thought about. And one of the reasons that is really important to document this is for your sake as employers, you need to have written records down, because as businesses, we are going to be subject to some kind of audits and scrutinies as the months and years go ahead now on these kinds of things. So unless you've got some audit trail, it's kind of like it never happened. And if you've got employees who are feeling overly nervous and feel that the correct measures haven't been put in place, there is a whistleblowing hotline, and people are using it. Yeah, so it's really important. People like me nag you for paperwork all the time. There's a reason here, is to keep you safe. All right. So this is a good kind of checklist and a guide to take you through of what the kind of conversation to have with your employee to help them back into work. And also, very importantly, this will send them a really powerful message that you care. You want to make sure that we're getting this stuff right. It's a scary old time, so we've all got our part to play. So you keep a summary of the actions here, who's responsible, kind of that's a fairly straightforward. But it's got an important bit at the end here with some follow-up. Yeah, in a month's time, in 3 months' time, revisit this. Is everything still on track? Because things are changing so fast right now. A month in the business world, well, in life right now, feels like 6 months in another life. Yeah, so things do change. So we would recommend that you follow up after a month and then 3 months after returning to work, just to check in to make sure everything's still on track. So that's it may look a little bit onerous. There's some guidance there and there as well that we've put onto the form. That's something that we're very happy to share with you. I'm sure I can give that to Tori, and she can probably distribute that to everybody, and hopefully that you might find that useful. So that's the return to work from furlough. So let's go on and just talk about furlough a minute. This whole flexible furlough, or FFS, which has it's an acronym for something else that I'm too much related to say right now, but you can work out for yourselves. Needless to say, it's come up. So good news is that the government have extended furlough until the end of October. So it's an amazing scheme. It's fantastic. Slight challenge it gives us is, it's kind of coming a little bit comfy. So that's, maybe is not helping us so much to get people back to work. Nevertheless, it's a lifeline for many, many thousands of people out there, and thank goodness we are very fortunate in this country to have had it. From June and July, the government's still going to be paying 80%, up to £2,500 a month, plus the NI and pension contributions. from the 1st of July, you will, however, yay, brilliant, this will be great for most employers, you can be able to agree some flexible working arrangements, so do some part-time work, gradually ease people back into work, which I think for most employees is going to be an absolute godsend. Because so many people we talk to right now say, I could just have them in for a day or a couple of days this week and maybe a couple of days next week. That would be great, but I can't afford to pay them for the full time at the moment. So from the 1st of July, this is going to enable you to do that. The only thing you need to remember is that you can have them in for all bits and pieces of times over the period. They have to have done a minimum period of a week's worth of work in the claim period that you're putting through. But other than that, you need to keep good records because you're going to have to report on it when you claim. So I think the admin side of it's probably going to be a bit fiddly, but hey, you've got the flexibility with still some support there. So I think that's generally really good news to help businesses get back up and running. So from August, the government will pay 80% up to 2.5%, but employers will now have to start paying NI contribution and pension contributions where you've had that covered before within the furlough. And if they do work any part-time hours, you will have to cover that cost yourself. Okay. Then from September, they'll go down to 70% up to a cap of 2,187.50 a month. Your employers are going to have to be paying the pension contributions and NI, and 10% of those wages to make it up to the 80%. Yeah, so gradually it's tapering off until the scheme actually comes to an end at the end of October. Now, one very, very important thing to think about at the minute, go back one, is that the latest date that employees can be placed, that new employees can be placed on furlough for the first time is the 10th of June. If you've got employees that have already been on furlough, that's fine, you don't have anything to worry about. But if you've got people that haven't been on furlough at all yet, but you might be planning to, actually the flexible working side of things, that suits me fine, I'll make sure I can get a few people onto that right now. Unless you've got them on for the 3-week period, the latest date will be the 10th of June, the scheme will be closed to new people for furlough after that from the 1st of July. So really important to think about. If they've been on furlough already, you're fine. But if they haven't, then you might want to think about getting them onto furlough for a period of 3 weeks this month, pretty soon. Okay, in order if you want to be able to take advantage of that flexibility. Just want to talk about shielding for a minute because that's kind of a bit of a hot topic just now. Some of your people may wish to still shield, even though the shielding is being lifted because they feel they are clinically extremely vulnerable and maybe at particular risk from COVID infection. Others might be concerned because they live with family members who are classed as high risk as well. If individuals are still shielding as restrictions begin to lift or the furlough scheme ends, what should you do? Well, you need to allow them to continue for work from home. And the government guidance, and it is guidance, is still saying if you can still let people work from home, you should still be doing that if you possibly can. Yeah. If not, then you need to look at other options, such as maybe if the furlough is still going, a further period of furlough, annual leave, or unpaid leave. And ultimately, at some point, these folk have got to start coming back to work. Yeah. So what the government is trying to get us to do is ease these people back gradually, but safely. Yeah. So I think you need to be mindful when you're having those conversations. Go back, think about the furlough assessment that I talked about a little earlier. Having those conversations. This is where this kind of stuff comes into play. Understanding what's going on at home. Is it kids? Is it parents that they're looking after? What's kind of home environment? And are they able to social distance? All those kinds of things. People who do develop COVID or who live with someone that does will still need to self-isolate for 14 days. Yeah, and if they are self-isolating, then it's statutory sick pay or your contractual sick pay, whichever arrangements you might have in place. The rules around that haven't changed, and they can still be found on the government website, so that's still very much there. Finally, before we kind of go on to some questions, something that I'm asked about an awful lot just lately is about holiday. Can I ask people to take a period of holiday? Yes, you can. It's always been there in the regulations. If you think about it, many of you might have in your contracts of employment at Christmas time, between the Christmas and New Year break, we require you to take or keep 3 or 4 days of your holiday for the Christmas break. Yeah, it's the same principle. That's where this kind of rule comes from. Basically, you can, as an employer, you can require an employee to take a period of holiday All you have to do is give them twice as much notice as the amount of holiday you wish them to take, and you can require them to take that. Yeah. Now, ordinarily, you probably wouldn't use that. A good example probably is some manufacturing or factories often have a close down period in August. They have like a blackout period for 2 weeks where they just close the factory. That's where this legislation comes in, because you're requiring people to take that time off at a given time. You can ask them to take a holiday during furlough. Many companies are doing so, because whilst they do so, the government are paying for 80% of that, and you're topping it up to 100%. So it kind of makes sense really to to take advantage of the scheme. I know it sounds a little bit maybe wrong, but actually it's there. So lots and lots of businesses are doing that, I might say. Legislation is in place to allow employees to carry over any unused holiday as a result of not being able to take it through COVID for up to 2 years. But it is up to you as employers to manage those entitlements. So if that's not going to run for your business properly, because what you're going to be doing is like building up a snowball of holiday balances and where they're all going to use it, that's for you to manage. But if the legislation is there, so you may have some of your staff come to you and say, oh yeah, but the government says I can carry it over for 2 years. Yes, that's true, but that's up to you to agree to do that. Okay. So hopefully that's kind of given you a few pointers. Hopefully I could talk for days on furlough and all the different things. You may have some questions now, which I'd be delighted to try and answer for you if I can. So I will hand over to Tori to drive that. So thank you very much, everybody. So I'll stop sharing. So Tori, over to you. Have we got any questions? Anybody got any questions?
Hello. We have 2 questions on the question and answer live.
Okay.
We have a question from Chris Smith. If you click on the question and Q&A, you will see what he's asking.
Okay, so I'm just going to read the question out. So hi there, Chris. We furloughed most of our staff in March, but have taken employees off furlough recently, but due to lack of work, we may need to furlough them again in the coming weeks. If we want to take advantage of the new flexible furlough scheme from 1st of July, do they have to be back on furlough as of the 10th of June or not, as the employees in question have all been furloughed and claimed for in March and April, even though they are working at the moment? Yes, you're fine. You're absolutely fine, because they've been furloughed already before. You're perfectly fine to put them onto the flexible scheme from the 1st of July. If none of those people that we were talking about there had ever been on furlough at all, then you'd have to quickly get them on by the 10th of June. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to take advantage of that in July. In fact, they wouldn't be able to have any furlough at all, because the scheme essentially closes to new entrants from the 1st of July. So in order to get your 3-week period, your minimum period in, they would have to be on. That's where the 10th of June is the key date there. If they're not on by the 10th of June, you're not going to get your 3 weeks in. So Chris, you're fine. They've been on there before. So make hay with the flexible furlough scheme come July, and I hope that works for your business.
Okay.
So I see Mike. Hi there, Mike Pringer. Do we need a new medical letter for our furloughed employees who've exceeded the 12 weeks? Not as far as we know at the minute. Those that, unless they have been notified, this is one of those situations where it is very fluid at the minute, and the guidance is not very precise on it. Not helpfully. If they haven't been extended by and had another extension to that, then I would suggest you be having a conversation, even if they're not on furlough. Well, they will be on furlough, I guess, at the minute, because they're shielding. Is having that conversation to find out a little more about what their conditions are. It may be that if that period has run out, you might be asking them, and they want to stay off a little bit longer. I would certainly be having a conversation around maybe some kind of medical letter from their doctor to support that. Maybe it's just that they're very scared to come back, and therefore I just want to stay here. But as employers, you have a right to understand, okay, so I need a bit more information about this. Can we have a letter from the doctor? If the doctor still feels that you are still very vulnerable, then that's fine. If, however, the doctor says, no, we don't need to give you another letter, you're kind of okay to go back, but they're just too scared to do so, then I think that's about having an individual conversation to see how we can transition them back, build confidence up, show them that you've got everything in place. Yeah. Ultimately, there is a point where they need to have to come back, and they have an obligation not to refuse a reasonable work request if everything is in place. So comes back to, have we done our prep? Have we got our risk assessments in place? Is everything there? that they couldn't possibly, that they're kept as safe as they possibly can. So it's not, I think, the simple answer is yes, you possibly would, but every situation is unique, and that is subject to a conversation to see what the situation is for that individual. Yeah, no two situations are the same. So I hope that helps. So Andy Edwards, hi. So it's not about being on furlough on the 10th of June, but having been on furlough prior to that point. Yes, absolutely. You've got it spot on. Yeah. Linda Fitzjohnson. So we've an employee who's been on furlough, but we believe they are ready for. But we believe we're ready for him to return, but he's reluctant to come back. Works on site. Okay. So this is kind of similar to the shielding one in a way, really. So it's about, okay, let's understand why you're reluctant. What is it that you're worried about? Is it because you feel that things are not safe at work? So share risk assessments. Share what you've done, take photos of what the before and afters. If you're changing workstations, putting hand sanitizer stations in place, that kind of stuff. Give them some reassurance that those things are in place. Understand what the reluctance are. It's it's about the conversation really, to understand what those reasons are, and gradually almost like close those doors to the objections, as it were, so that it comes to a point where there's nothing. If you're not symptomatic, we've got everything in place here to keep you safe as we possibly can. There's no one at home that you're shielding or that needs extra care. If all of those things are covered, then we have to find a way. If it can't work at home and they are site workers, then ultimately, there comes a point where they have to come trying to get them back to work. Now, one thing I would say here is at the moment, you cannot dismiss or discipline somebody for a COVID-related matter. It would be an automatic unfair dismissal, and you'd find yourself in very hot water. Yeah, so it's in the same field as discrimination claims, right? You don't want to go there. They're very expensive and are uncut towards them. So it's a really sensitive time. As I say, one size does not fit all, but I think it's about having a conversation with that person just to understand what the reluctance is and try and get them back. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? No? Well, oh, hang on, Chris. Thanks for answering my question. Good news. If we refurlough some staff after the 10th of June who are working at the moment, is it a 3-week minimum or just up to the 1st of July? And can we be flexible after that? The claims are still for the 3-week period. What they're saying from the 1st of July onwards, you have to have a minimum of 1 week's work to be able to make a claim for the furlough. Okay, so you can have them in Monday this week, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, Thursday afternoon the following week. As long as those bits and pieces add up to a minimum of 1 week, at least 1 week of work, then you can make the claim. But you will have to pay for the time that they're coming in as well. Okay, so you're going to have to start putting your hand in your pocket, but you can still pop them back on furlough when you don't need them. Okay, so you can, it's my phrase that I coined right at the beginning of this thing when furlough was launched. I called it flip-flop furlough. So we truly have got now flip-flop furlough. So what you'll just need to be careful of is keeping really good attendance records, because I think I haven't seen the reporting yet I'm not sure if it's even out on the claim portal yet because it's not ready. When we get to that point to put the claim in, it's going to want more granular information about time recording and stuff. So just make sure you've got good records, because also assume at some point you might well be audited as well. So it's really important to keep those trails, and I have no doubt they are going to do some auditing after the event. Yeah. How does flexible furlough scheme work on for 0 hours contract staff, please? Okay, Tamsin Beach. Hi, Tamsin. Now, where flexible furlough scheme? Well, 0 hours contracts or 0 hours, so you get them in for the hours that that you need them to work. So the rate of furlough obviously is based on their average earnings for the previous year, or the highest period next year. But for variable hours people, 0 hours people, you take the average earnings for the 2019-20 pay year and work out the average weekly pay. So that's their rate of pay. What you do in terms of how many hours that you give them, there is 0 hours contract, so that's up to you. If you want them in for 10 hours or 4 hours or 10 hours, then that's what you do. That's what a 0 hours contract allows you to do. Peter Bennett, for part-time furlough, can they do 1 week for 1 full week? I think that's 1 full week off, week on, week off. Yeah, absolutely. As long as you've done a minimum of a week, you're fine. So week on, week off, good rotation pattern, that would absolutely work. Okay, you're very welcome, Chris. Okay. Anyone else got any other questions that I can help with?
Yes, Mandy, I did have one
Go on then.
from a client. He asked if his team continued to work from home for, say, another couple of months.
Yeah.
Then it's become sort of contractual that they carried on working. So then contractually they can carry on.
You know, it's a really good question, actually. There is something in that could be classed as the phrase is custom and practice. Has it become the norm because we've now done it for so long? Yeah, potentially it could do, actually, if they pushed it, I guess. And if you can, if you allow them to carry on, there's an argument to say, well, is it not working for you? If it's gone on this long, why do you need them to come back? And I think that's the question as employers that we are going to have to face ourselves with quite a lot, actually. You know, what is our reason for saying no now? It's a much harder conversation to have. I know, and as employers, we are, you know, culturally, I think, as well, we tend to say, can I work from home? No, I need you in the office, yeah? And it almost like trips off the tongue really quickly before we really give it too much thought. We are in a different place now. You know, it's kind of, well, hang on, what is my reason? What is a genuine reason why that can't work? So yes, potentially it could be. So if they're worried about that, then I'd say probably if he wants them back in the office, if that's what you genuinely want, then maybe start trying to bring them back sooner, providing all the measures are in place, then get them back sooner.
I think, Mandy, that the secondary question to that then is if it potentially becomes contractual, does he need to make a change to his terms of employment?
Yeah, he may do. Yeah, he may do. I think it's I think he just needs to have a think about right now. The thinking process should be, what does he want to do? Before we get another 2 months down the line, you know, he's right to be thinking about that now. Don't leave it for another couple of months when it all becomes much harder to rewind that back if that's what he decides to do at the time. Because also the message to employees, what you're sending is that this is okay. You know, because right now everybody's starting to come back to work. So those folk that are sitting at home right now and he's allowing that to continue, think, oh, okay, this is all right. We're just going to continue in this vein. That works for me. I prefer this. So answer me why I can't continue.
Yeah. Well, I think the challenge he's got 8 staff, 7 performing very well, 1 not performing very well.
Okay, is the one not performing very well and the one at home?
They're all at home.
Oh, right, they're all at home. Okay, well, look, you know, one of the challenges of home working is managing performance and supervision. Yeah. You know, that is one of the fundamentals. So if that's genuinely a concern, it's not working. But, you know, you manage performance in exactly the same way as whether they're at home. They're still at work, they're just in a different location right now. So if they're not performing, then deal with the performance issues. Yeah, and if one of those reasons, you know, might be that they just can't get motivated to work from home or they're not productive to work from home. So it's one of the challenges. How do you supervise? You know, and it's got to be like we're doing now in our Zoom world or our Teams world. You know, and not maybe so easy because you're not watching somebody all of the time. So and these are the things that as employers you need to start thinking about right now. Does that work for us? How are we going to manage that supervision, managing performance? How do we monitor productivity? Is that all possible through technology? Maybe not.
Absolutely. Well, one of the points I made to him was, you know, he really needs to look at his systems and processes, because if they're very robust and he's got the MI there, then he will be able to prove performance either way.
Yeah. And it may force employers to tighten up on how they manage performance as well. You know, if they haven't had robust systems, it's just kind of, I look across the room every day and see what he's doing over there. You know, not really very proactive performance management. So, you know, this kind of world we're in now might force people to be more specific and more prescriptive about how they manage performance. So, you know, it's a new world that's being developed and created as we go along. Really, we're finding a way. But I think, you know, he needs to think about that now before it goes too much longer, to think about what works for his business and if that's going to work. Yeah, before those conversations get more difficult to have.
Great, thanks, Mandy.
That's right, you're welcome. So Steve Baker, slightly different point, but if the government eventually introduced test and trace, what are the the employer and employee pay rights if an employee is to force self-isolate. Statutory sick pay. It will be statutory sick pay. So that's the simple answer to that as we understand it at the minute. Or unpaid leave. So, are you as an employer expected to pay full pay if someone is found to test and trace? No, if they're not at work, you're not obliged to pay them, but it would probably be statutory sick pay. Or you can work from home. That will be the instant answers for that one. Okay, if it's possible to do so. Obviously, if you're something like manufacturing or construction, that's not possible. Then they would have to go on SSP. But the government is being very clear, which we've heard over the last few days. If you get the message from test and trace, you have to isolate. Yeah, so we can't prevent them from doing that. Okay.
Right. Well, thanks, Mandy.
Yeah, I think that's it. Hopefully that's helped.
That's the questions that we've got on the screen. There's a couple of others, but I just want to mention that we're just going to do a poll about how comfortable people are coming back to work. Would you just like to explain that, Tori, how this is going to work? No?
Of course. So at the bottom of the screen, people will see that they have a poll square. They just select the poll, and there's a question in there, and if they can select from 1 to 10 and answer our question, which is, how prepared do you feel you are for your workforce to return to your business premises? 1 being not at all, and 10 fully prepared. If you could just select one of those and I will launch the poll now, and that will allow the panelists and the people that are attending to take part. Okay.
Fantastic. Okay.
There was one final question here from Peter Bennett. If I just pick it up very quickly, if someone goes home with COVID and are then off for 2 weeks, does this have to be reported by RIDDOR? No, I don't actually know the answer to that one, actually. RIDDOR reportable if someone's off and you have to, if they go to hospital, then that's usually reportable. I will find out for you and I'll come back and answer that one. I don't want to tell you completely wrong on the RIDDOR reporting with COVID, but I suspect possibly yes, but let's find out and give you the proper answer. So I'll come back to you, Peter, on that one.
No, that's great. I think we should get the results of our poll pretty quickly now, I should think. We've had one question from Ernie Batty, Medicare Systems, about the recording of part-time hours. That could be quite an intensive job. Can we provide something? And I'm sure our if you're using our payroll services, we'll probably come up with something. We may be able to put that back on the hub, and try and help folk to do that recording. But I can understand it. It sounds like it could be quite difficult, Mandy.
Yeah, there's some good time and attendance systems out there that don't have to be expensive, so you don't need all the kind of rigmarole of thumbprints and all this kind of stuff. There's some cheaper stuff. But Timetastic is one that springs to mind, which is one that's very cost effective, that people might want to check out. It's at basic level, it's not overly sophisticated, but what you're doing is capturing the hours. So that might be one to think about.
Yeah, we use Timetastic.
Oh, there you go.
You don't you? It's a great system actually.
Yeah.
Something you can use.
But it's a really good question and really important that you keep those time and attendance records. These are HMRC claims. They're going to want evidence. Yeah. So it's okay putting the claim in and then saying, oh, that's it. Doesn't worry. You need to have that backup, and you need to be keeping these records for, I think it's 6 years. I think you need to keep them for, so 5 or 6 years. So, yeah.
Okay. So should we close the poll now, Tori? Oh, here we go. So what we've got, I guess, about sort of 25% that sort of got a fair bit of work to do. As normal with these polls, most people sit in the middle. There's a fair bit of confidence about, though. I would say that's this is the accountant in me, isn't it? Up to we've got sort of about 50% who are getting a fair amount of confidence about getting back to work, which is that's good. It's good for the country and good for the county. So yeah. But, well, if you've got any more HR questions, please please get in touch with Mandy.
Yeah, happy to help.
Very, very knowledgeable and helpful lady, and I'm sure she'd love to get to know you if you don't know already.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, if there's anything that you need, just give us a shout. You can contact me through the website, purplehr.co.uk. It's really simple. Or come through the guys at Ward Goodman, my Ward Goodman family. They can pass over any questions that you've got. So happy to help. I will give Tori that return from furlough assessment as well, so she can circulate that round. So please help yourselves use that. Hopefully you might find that useful.
Okay, and you're okay for this presentation to go on our WD Hub?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure, yeah.
So that'll be on the hub with all the rest of the information that's coming out. Please feel free. There's lots of articles on there. We've written a few about different subjects, and they'll keep going for the foreseeable future. And hopefully this event can keep going. There was a very interesting. There was a question that came in a bit earlier, which we may be able to answer next week a bit more fully. But it was only on text. There's obviously it's a connection issue, but we've got a question about liability for directors, people coming back to work. Do you feel any, increased liability? But I'll just let you know, we've got A1 Insurance on board for next week. They're going to do a presentation on all sorts of liability issues, insurance related issues, and some opportunities that are coming out of this situation as well. So if you want to join us next week, we have a couple from the team at A1 Insurance to answer those sort of liability type questions. We had another question about whether there was any benefits to employees that could be had at the minute that's going on. And I think Stephen, you've got a bit of an answer to that.
Yeah, so essentially, employees are able to pay employees are able to pay employees an allowance of £6 a week to cover additional household expenses. So that can be paid by the employer completely free of tax and NIC. So that's quite useful, and probably gives a bit of goodwill from the employer to the employees working from home as well. So that's something worthwhile thinking about.
Yes, can I just ask a question maybe on the back of that? It's something that came up with one of my clients yesterday related to that. If they're being paid the £6 allowance, what happens or can they then additionally be paid like an allowance for their broadband, and that kind of thing, and other costs?
Well, there's essentially two ways you can do it. You can either calculate the additional expenditure incurred by the employee from working from home.
Yeah.
But if the employee already has broadband in place,
yeah,
there would be no additional expense for the use of that broadband. Okay. So it's only the additional costs that are incurred, but the allowance really just takes out all the legwork in trying to calculate the additional expenses as a way of doing that. And I saw an article the other week that stated, I think, the average cost of someone working from home increases their bills by about £12 a month. So it's actually should cover the costs, any additional costs. So
it's a question that's coming up a lot actually. So I think it's a really good one to raise and to clarify, because I had a conversation with a client yesterday who was going through like if they incur extra money on postage or stationery, if we have to buy them another chair, do we have to buy them a desk, do we have to give them an allowance? And it's like broken down. I just thought, and I know about the £6, but there's a potential for me that you could end up doubling up if you're not careful, and then there's a kind of taxable issue going on in there. So that's really interesting. So hopefully that might be a point for others to think about as well.
Fantastic. I think we're nearly at the end of the session, really, because I'm sure you've got a lot to do today. We keep getting questions about sort of investments. Gareth. Are they going up or down? I think you might have a difficulty answering that one.
Yes. Obviously a very general question, because obviously it depends on where you're invested. Your risk profile. It's a broader question, but generally, certainly the last couple of months, investment markets have been recovering. A lot of clients have been asking why that is, because on the face of it, still very difficult times. A lot of businesses are under pressure. The corporate results could get affected. But markets, the US market in particular, is bouncing back very quickly. And why is that? Well, the simple answer is a lot of the uncertainty that we had back in March has been taken away. There's one thing that investment markets hate is uncertainty. And I think back in March, we had a huge amount of that. We weren't sure what we were dealing with, what the lockdown meant, when the lockdown was going to be released. And of course, the release of the lockdown in the parts of the US, UK and Europe has meant that the positivity started to come back and the investment markets has recovered quickly. I think the other aspect is the amount of money that's being pumped into the system as well. So obviously, all of the sort of central governments, the banks are pumping huge amounts of money into the system to prop it up, which has also given the investment markets a bit more confidence. And I think the third aspect is China, the China effect. Obviously, a huge global economy, and actually, the results the last couple of weeks suggest that the Chinese economy is in pretty good health. No pun intended there. It's pretty good. So actually, moving forward, I think it's more positive than it was certainly 2 or 3 months ago. But you've got to be selective. I think you've got to be selective in terms of your investment strategy and what areas of the market.
Okay. Well, thanks, Gareth. I think we're going to have a financial special at some point in the next few weeks. So,
Yeah, I think the one question that we probably cover at a different session, because it's a broader subject, is the question we're getting from a lot of clients at the moment and introducers is how will their income be affected? Because there's a lot of clients worried that obviously with the dividend cuts from a lot of the big FTSE 100 companies, their income might get affected. And obviously if they're reliant on investment income, then what impact that has. So we'll probably cover that in another session, because as I said, it's a broader subject.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very open question to have to deal with. So thanks very much. Just got another question actually just come in about I think it's the benefits question. Came from Mike again. Sorry, I seem to have lost that one a bit. It's about whether it's people from working at home or in the actually at work, whether they still can have the benefit.
It's for home workers, so that's where you're incurring the cost. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope you got that then Mike. I just got a question here. This is a bit of a panel question. I think I might have to come to you, Jen, for this to start with, because it says, does the panel think there'll be a pinch point where central or local financial support for businesses and charities will stop, and when do they think that might be? So perhaps you can just take us on the community of the charity angle.
I certainly think that the move is towards shutting down that central and local government support. I'm not sure that there's going to be any additional initiatives that are coming out. Certainly on the charities and community front, there is a huge amount of lobbying to effectively try and rescue those charities that have had to stop their frontline services. And we do have a very much a split within the sector at the moment in terms of those charities that are getting funding because they're delivering frontline services, so food boxes, old people services, vulnerable children, that sort of thing. And there are other charities that are just unable to do anything at all and really need some sort of support. I'm not totally convinced with the message that's coming out of the Department of Culture, Media and Sport that there is actually going to be anything further coming through. I think the tap is starting to be turned off.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jen. If anybody, if you're involved in the charitable sector, anything to do with communities, please connect with Jen, especially on social media, because she does a lot telling people what the latest support is available. And please go to the hub again for the charities section. I think we're pretty well there. I'd just like to invite you back next week. And if you have any particular subjects you'd like us to deal with in the next few weeks, please let us know. We are booking speakers as we go. So just get in contact with me, ian.rod@wardgoodman.co.uk. and give me a suggestion. I'd be really pleased to hear from you, or else contact us through the website inquiries. But thank you so much for joining us today. I think it's been very interesting. I hope you found it informative. I hope we've done what we said we'd do, and it does what it says on the tin, as they say, as an event. And we look forward very much to seeing you next week. Thank you very much to the panelists, and take care and have a good day. Stay safe, stay alert.